Examples of antagonistic relationships between alums and their university because nobody sat down and said, what do we really want out of this? Now, it's not to say that these are the only values. I mean, when I think about the alumni community at Washington, not every alum is interested in mentoring a student. Not every alum is interested in being a career services contact. Not every alum cares about football. Not every alum cares about the Nobel Prize winning research. So you have to also find that connection, that personal affinity, that component of their relationship to the university that has meaning to them. I would put that in the circle around these core values, because at the end of the day, if this is what forms the framework of your resource engine, it's very difficult to have things outside of these priorities end up being the why, because both Claire and the organization won't have enough teeth to sustain those as time goes on. So a very brief framework. Is that somehow connecting to things that you're talking about? Does that seem relevant to you? Good. Okay. So Kyle's going to talk a bit about how that framework begins to translate into a volunteer infrastructure. How is it that you, with your respective chapters, when those jets start coming back and you're reaching out to them and you're inviting them to be part of what you're doing, how is it that you begin to think about sustainability? Because it's all wonderful for us to have agreement at our level with these conversations. What does that mean out in the field? When you're constantly adding new people into your alumni base, how are you defining relevance? How are you communicating these priorities in a way that also meets the needs of the jets that are coming back? Because many of these individuals may not know what it is that they're interested in. They may hear these words and say, okay, yeah, I can understand that, but you know what, really, I just want to get the group that used to meet at the Hard Rock and Namba and get them back here in Chicago and get us back together and start talking about our experiences. So how do you capture that social emotional value as well? So Kyle's going to talk a little bit about that, and then I hope that we can open it up for questions afterwards, because I think that there's so much here that we've dealt with in the university environment that you're currently dealing with now, and if you're not dealing with it now, you're certainly going to deal with it as you begin to start regulating and structuring and making decisions about future opportunities. So I appreciate your attention, and Kyle, I'll turn it over to you to talk about sustainability, and then we'll come back. Thank you.
Let me adjust this microphone a little bit. First of all, I'm very proud to be a JET member and extremely grateful to see a room full of leaders that have been willing to take on the role of being the ambassadors for JET alumni. So let me give you guys a hand, and give yourselves a hand for the great job that you're doing. Because I know that it's difficult work. I know that it's difficult to be away from your families, to take the time out to come to Seattle, Washington, to lose a weekend, to be here and working hard for the JET alumni. So I really appreciate that. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that many of us got here via different motivations. Now I'll tell you, I have a career, a long career of being involved with community organizations, being a member of several different organizations. In fact, I was looking at my wallet this morning, and I have about 7 membership cards in my wallet as we speak. I have a membership for Costco. I'm very excited about that one. A membership for the UWAlumniPresentation. Go Two Dogs that are out here. I have memberships with the Japanese American Citizens League of Seattle. I have memberships with the JET Alumni Association. There are several things that I'm involved with, and I think that it's important to recognize and acknowledge the reasons, the rationale, the motivators that get people to get involved with different organizations. Now, in thinking about those motivators, what we've come to the conclusion on is it's important to understand those motivators, what the institutional need is to be able to match those two priorities up and figure out where you're going as an organization, because that's what creates sustainability. So let me talk a little bit about motivators. Let's take, for example, one of my first membership organizations. I was involved with the Asian Pacific American Student Services area at Colorado State University. Sadly, I'm not a UW alum. But I'll tell you what, I was very enthusiastic and motivated to get involved with that organization. Can anyone guess why? I was there to meet hot chicks. That was my motivator, that was my role. But guess what? I knew it wasn't about that after I started getting involved with these leadership organizations and the way that organization functioned. I had to figure out what motivators are there for membership? And you know, the UW Alumni Association, to its credit, has done a lot of research on this. We've actually taken time, created focus groups, surveyed data, and figured out the main motivators. Unfortunately, I can't take credit for this work. There's a couple of colleagues at our Alumni Association that have defined these parameters. And hopefully, I think that it would be of value to you as you look at the motivators for why people would get involved with your organization. So let's start that out. These are the UW Alumni Association membership motivators, but you can tell me if it's relevant to your processes. So let's take the first one, affinity. Okay, so affinity for me is I am a Jet, and when you're a Jet, you're a Jet. There's nothing else to it. I have a lot of pride. I remember the times when I was having drinking contests with my Kocho sensei during those Bonenkai, and I had barely narrowly lost on purpose. And I'm sure that we can relate in some way to those different types of memories. It's important to have that kind of community, the ability to be able to coalesce and say that I had a great time with the JET program. I am a JET, and that's a part of my identity. Next one, cause and belief. I genuinely believe in multiculturalism and diversity. I genuinely believe that, as Rick Steves does, if you travel out there, if you go to these different locations and experience these cultures, you understand and empathize more deeply with the cultures that you're involved with. How many of you can have that same kind of belief or rationale? Let's take a look at the next one. Monetary value. Well, you know, I'm a member of Costco for a reason. Trying to save those big bucks, and guess what? The reason I joined Costco is because of that. And there are other membership organizations that provide that as well. For example, within the Alumni Association, we've created monetary value. If I go to the famous restaurant 13 Coins out here, hopefully you guys get a chance to do that, I can show my Alumni Association card and get a 10% discount. Those kind of things are motivators, believe it or not, for people to join organizations. Does the amount that you're spending, whether it be time, resource allocation, greater than the impact of the monetary value? The final one is access. Well, you know, I'm really, really excited tonight to go to the Consulate General's house. I don't know if you guys are. How many of you guys have been to a Consulate General-led dinner? So you guys know about the personal chefs and all that good stuff, right? Well, guess what? That's creating an access for me. That if I wasn't a JET alumni, there would be no opportunities that I'd be able to go to that house. Or without being JET leaders, there's no opportunity for you to go to the conference. Those are points of access. Now think about that in terms of your own membership motivators for why you would be involved with a membership organization like the JET Alumni Association. Now I'm going to pass around the sheet real quick. Oh, do you mind passing that out? Now it has a little bit of a scale now in terms of how these four arms work for you. And what I want you to do is put your own motivators on this list. And this is the way I would do it. Let me show you. Okay, so affinity. I have a strong affinity for the JET Alumni Association. I would say that access-wise, it's great that I have access to a great network of peers and individuals. So for me, that's a little bit higher on why I would want to be a part of it. Cause and belief. As I articulated before, I strongly believe in the mission of JET, and I want to be able to help it out. Monetary value, well, I'm not really getting a lot of monetary value. I'm not getting those membership discounts and things like that, so it's not as much of a motivator for me. So when we take this and we put some lines around it, you start seeing where your organization stands in regards to why people would start to be involved with your different respective chapters. And I think that the majority of this belief, the reason why people would get involved in the organization is the hook. It's the way of getting people involved initially in the process. After that, I think it's important to understand how to create value for those individuals and how to redefine some of the values of why they would get involved. And the key to any sustainability in any organization is being able to articulate those values and get folks to believe in those values that your organization stands for. Now, Paul Rucker earlier referenced the book Good to Great by Tom Collins. How many of you guys have actually read that book? I would strongly suggest that you read that book. It is an incredible book about organizational analysis. It also tells you how to build successes within your organization, how to build a sustainable organization. One of the things that he talks about